Three different stories, three different industries, but a lot of common points. First of all, I'm happy because to be entrepreneur, you don't need the school. I don't know if it's good for me for my job, but it's the first information. You need an idea and the courage. And three other points that come out from all this journey are a passion. You need to be passionate to something, a capacity to do something, to implement that, to develop that, to do it something, and the network. And this is what we heard. And in the first presentation, I come to you, you draw a big entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial environment, but the other part of your journey is how do you create the safe spaces so that the entrepreneurs develop their ideas?
So I think what Maya means is that, so Pink Maharani, the handwoven scarf luxury brand we have, it was a very conscious choice for us to work with micro-entrepreneurs, like women, men, weavers, so on. And so when MetaMuse happened, it was again a choice of saying, okay, we could become a sourcing partner for big factories and big companies, which would actually be much more easier, or we could work with small weavers and micro-entrepreneurs. They're like you and me, like they're just based in a different country, they have a different setup, that's it. But ultimately, they want to pay school fees and have insurance and pay rent and buy a house. The dreams are sort of the same, right? So we said, okay, so let MetaMuse then be a safe space where micro-entrepreneurs, especially women, creators, can come on board and create and have amazing opportunities to work with organizations like WIN, like with the pouch we did, right? And for BMW, we made a beautiful leather badge tag. These at the corporate they have they have to swipe to get in, and the leather workshop that came from is built by an amazing man who comes from the caste which is called the untouchable caste in India, unfortunately. It's the lowest of caste, and he basically learned how to make leather by watching YouTube videos for 1 year nonstop, because nobody wanted to come and teach him how to do it. And then he said, I'm going to take this knowledge and teach the women in the village to just give them economic opportunity, right? So he started creating a safe space. And so we are creating safe space with MetaMuse and sort of saying, and now it's your turn as corporates and WIN and, to join the safe space and say, let's create together, Ultimately, you're going to spend money on your Christmas gifts and, I don't know, your packaging and your accessory thing, with the homeware, with your university merchandising. I mean, I can literally pick names out and I can say, big corporates with your giveaways and fairs, like it's endless. But then the whole idea of MetaMuse was, let's do a safe space where we can have that conversation and support women and men to create this process. So I guess that's what you sort of meant. But of course, we support a lot of other projects. We talk about child sexual abuse, women, menstrual hygiene in women, like the scarves we sell. We adopt one girl for 1 year in a menstrual hygiene awareness campaign because it's a big taboo in India. We work with education. So that's another story altogether. So philanthropy is very rooted in what we do.
So we need this safe space for the storytelling, but the story, the true one, the story about values, about identity. How and why are these storytelling so important in the brand and for entrepreneurial journey in general?
I think people are ready to stop with the fast fashion. Like, they want to connect to the designer. They want to know the story. They want to know how a product was made. They want to know who's making it. I always compare from fashion to food, that there's been, huge shift in people shopping at farmers markets or shopping, the farm to table. shopping local food trucks, really getting to know the farmer, getting to know the cook or where their food is being prepared and made. And the same as that we're caring what we put into our bodies, we want to know what we're putting on our bodies. So I think the storytelling is very, very important. I mean, it's one thing having another product. Nobody needs another pair of shoes or another dress or bag, but it's really about the story behind the product and really feeling the connection to the maker and to the brand and the DNA and what it stands for. It's this whole new shift and more conscious buying.
And also in this storytelling, you will tell after this afternoon other stories, and in particular this story about the second chance and the second career. And you will tell us also one or two words, not too much because you need to go there to hear more. But also in this area, the storytelling has also a second and the biggest importance, or...
Yeah, so I'm working right now as executive director of the Philadelphia Fashion Incubator, and it's been incredible to work with many, many women entrepreneurs. We also have men in the program, but there are many female entrepreneurs that are in their second, third career, and they're 40 to 70 years old, and they're not just creating another product. Like, they're really thoughtfully thinking about what they want to put out there in the market, and there's a story behind the creation of their brands. So I was sharing earlier about one story of one of our designers. She was working in corporate and business development for the dental industry. Her father had Alzheimer's, and the nurses dressed him in a sweatshirt, and he was always formally dressed in a button-down shirt, but because of his illness, he wasn't able to dress himself, and the nurses didn't have the patience to put him in a button-down shirt. So she created a company, Nancy Connor. It's called Smart Adaptive Clothing. And she put Velcro in the placket of the shirt and also in the cuffs for easy on, easy off dressing. And she does shirts now for men and women. She just showed it at New York Fashion Week. And, really, not only it was inspired by her father starting the company, but now she's helping so many other people around the country that have disabilities or motor skill challenges getting dressed.
Thank you. And when we speak about the second chance, the second career, I come to you because you had one life, one professional life, and then another one with your startup. What were the big challenges, the big successes? We have heard, but the big challenges in this second life, in this startup atmosphere?
Actually, one of the biggest challenge was in a corporate life. When you start 25 years ago, you are the only woman in the room. I remember actually being only woman as an engineer in a room. Even the gift pack that I have received was, Dear Mr. Uran. So I had to, early in my career, I had to also even check Sunday evenings which football match was played, which football group has won, because in Monday mornings meetings, when we had our management meetings, half of the discussion was about that. So, which actually absolutely doesn't interest me, not at all. I like to talk about the fashion, but not about football. So this was what in my career. So, but then, interestingly, when I decided, okay, now I am going to create my own company, so everything will be fine. But no. One of the big very interesting and shocking experience I had was one of the advisors at the early stage, 5 years ago, told us, to my woman co-founder and me, you need to find a man co-founder into the team, otherwise you will not get money. So this was, okay, now things have changed, but it was actually the situation when we were at that time. But, also in many cases we have proven it totally wrong. Now today we know, you have been speaking about the experience, actually women startups, they do much better than men startups. So it was, so as I said, the challenge of being a woman has followed me also entrepreneurship. Maybe the topic that I have been working on wasn't a very womanly topic, but this is what happened. Yeah.
If I may add to that, Maya, sorry. So I was talking to somebody yesterday when I was having lunch, she was saying oh, I sometimes have to play a card of being a woman to, get that role, or, to be honest with you, play all your cards. Use them. I mean, I shamelessly use the fact that I'm a woman of color, I am a minority, whatever, use it. Because, ultimately, in the beginning, I used to feel very bad about it, being, oh, but it's not fair, and, whatever. Sorry, but life's not fair. Business is not fair, you see? I don't mean it from a negative connotation. I mean it from the fact of, at least from the business, what I'm doing, I'm not doing it for me, ultimately. Sure, there is the basic needs I need as a human being and as my team and, all that, and you. But ultimately, I want to further the cause of sustainability, women empowerment, sustainable livelihood, and so on. So if playing those cards helps, I've taken so many times my German husband to pitch meetings, and people just assume he's the co-founder. I'm like, sure, assume. I don't care. As long as you're listening to me, I don't care, So I think we shouldn't be shy. I find sometimes we just go shy of the opportunity and say oh, but, no. I say play all your cards. Use all your cards to get the message out there, isn't it? And then you'll see.
Yeah,
Just to
actually,
add to that.
the one card I always play, people underestimate me because I am a woman, and let them underestimate. They are afterwards surprised.
Yeah, it's super. I think we should, because otherwise, how do you get your message out there? That should be sort of the vision, right? How do we get our message out there? And no, I totally get you.
Absolutely.
And you need to use the moment that is there, because when the opportunity is there, you need to jump on it, because you don't know if it will happen one more time, on how many energy that need to go one more time in the same subject and to create the new opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And is that also something that you teach or bring in this incubator, and how this momentum that is now, do not wait, go jump?
Yeah, I mean, the whole masculine, feminine that we've been talking about at WIN in the pre-conference, I found it fascinating because, as you just brought up, Narmada, that, we can incorporate both, or use it to our advantage, or when we need to use it. I mean, at the Philadelphia Fashion Incubator, we're very focused on entrepreneurship and the business of fashion. And what's unique about it's almost like an MBA program for designers. So we're not teaching anything related to design, but we're really teaching them how to have business acumen, how to think have an entrepreneurial mindset, and really a big part of not only the workshops and education that we're providing, but we have, and Zoom has been incredible because we've now had speakers from all over the world that have spoken to the designers via Zoom. But the other really important thing is the network, and really being able to help them open up their network to new resources or people, industry leaders or business resources that they need. So I always say it's like 3 years fast forward with the information that we're providing. But at the end of the day, it's all their own business, and they're sailing the ship, so they really need to decide how they want to move forward with all of this great information and resources we're providing.
And Mine, I'm also thinking about what we spoke before, the importance of the go now, but also the importance of no go. What are those limits and how can you identify it?
Yeah. The key is why do you create a company? Because you are passionate about it. Because if you are not passionate about a topic, please don't leave where you are. So stay in your corporate job, because actually I have worked 3 times more when I am entrepreneur. So you have a vision, you want to just go in this direction. And then I think 2 years to our company, one VC approached us, and they were going to give us 1 million. Great, exactly what we need. Their due diligence took actually 6 months. I mean, I can tell you, just for a company with 3 people, how much due diligence can you do? But it's okay. So after 6 months, they said, okay, we will invest in you. But they brought us a agreement where we had to just, it wasn't actually in line why we have created this company. So, and there, we had just only 10,000 in the bank account. We had to say no. And we have said no. And then went to a business angel who gave us afterwards 1 million. So sometimes if you are really doing it for you, and especially in a startup, so I'm also giving coaching actually young startups. It's so important not to forget your objective, why you have started it. Otherwise, just to continue to do too many compromises is not very good.
And to say no, right? I think it's super important to say no. I think when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a small business, when you're always struggling for cash and to pay your employees and pay your marketing or whatever, it's like all these things is very enticing. Like yesterday, I asked a question in the end of the plenary where I said, like, it's exhausting to raise money, right? And we just closed our seed round for MetaMuse. But now I'm so grateful that we didn't go with any of the VCs or the big guys, and rather have 4 amazing women investors. Amazing, that they are super aligned on what we want and the whole philanthropic impact investing, right? So I think just because you get it, like somebody's like, oh great, here you go, 1 million. I think we should not just grab it. I think it's important to say no, and it's part of the journey. And I think as entrepreneurs, we sort of lose that sometimes. It's super important what you said, not to forget why this whole thing started in the first place.
And I think it's important to have your non-negotiables written down, like to know what, because sometimes when the carrot is dangling, it's easy to, be persuaded. And even in my accessories business, I had 2 investors that came to me through some friends, and they look great on paper, and they sounded great. And at the end of the day, and actually at one point, I had a license with Avon Cosmetics for 2 years, and I had this big order from Victoria's Secret that they ordered for 80 stores, and this investor wanted to come in, and he wanted me to share the profits with him. That was my order. So, even though they came and I was really looking for a partner to come in and help me, I had to say no, because I realized these are not the right partners. So. And
you have to figure out, I think, as you go. I think like somebody said earlier, there's no rule book. There is no course. There is no, I think we all have to go on that journey of creation and building, and then figure out what is that you want. Maybe you're like, oh, I'm done with it. Now, after 3 years, you're like, oh, good, it was a nice run. I could just sell and, do something else. Like you said, reinventing. You're not a tree. So I think, but everybody has to go through that process. Otherwise, it's very easy to be carried away, with the whole thing. So, yeah.
Can we take questions?
I think one thing really important to say is to everyone, also you need to have a stretchable risk zone. This is really important. If you are not stretchable in this risk zone, for example, you might actually have sleepless night. then don't do it. Because actually in a startup, I really loved your stuff. Maybe it's just like looks like mine. I remember actually one day in the morning I said, okay, we are going to bankrupt, and in the afternoon we just received a huge order from Co-op. Okay, so we are going to make it. So there are really, really tough situations. You need to stay always in the winning position and stay there and then have this risk stretch possibility in your life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why
In
I
your
said you should have a
character.
little crazy in you, you know,
Exactly.
in order to go there. If you don't have that crazy, then you're going to get exhausted.
Yeah.
Perhaps time for questions.
Conversation, and I just want to acknowledge all of you for what you've created. A couple of comments and questions. One is, could you define more specifically what you mean by a stretchable risk factor?
I mean, for me, definition is actually if I start not sleep nights, for me is actually then the stretch is too much and I need to just adapt myself.
Are you just talking about the impact of stress on your body, or
Exactly.
are you talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that,
Because you cannot define if you have to go into a risk, you just walk into a risk. And
what are you defining as risk? That's what I'm asking you.
Exactly. You don't define actually the risk as it is, because really, for example, when we had, I remember actually one of the capital raises we had 50 cents in our bank account. So this is actually how much you go into the risk. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
We are at minus, so you still at 50 cents. I can remember numbers which were red like for the longest time I can remember. So you were still good.
Just the other comment I'd like to make is, yes, I think the idea is essential. I think passion is what is the fire that takes you through. It's very important to be aligned with your values, but I also feel it's essential to know how to strategically build a business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about it at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
If you want
Yeah.
4:15, you want to come, I'll give you more facts,
Okay.
more tools, and strategy is like bold.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I think,
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I think you need to do both. You have to do the strategy. I mean, I had one day actually several times, but I had our first order was also in my garage, and I was putting them and then bringing them to the pharmacies by one. And in the afternoon, I was giving a strategic presentation. So you have to do everything
Many different hats.
from A to Z. You don't have anybody, no departments.
But just to give you an example, this book that you all have here with the WIN book, yesterday I just opened it, and then exactly. And there are all the speaker information in the back, which is cool, because then you could see who works where, what are they into. So in mine, I just circled a few, and then if I see them, I catch them and say, hey, by the way, this is a way we could connect, this is the way we could build, because this is what you want to do, this is what I want to do. And I haven't found anybody from Medela. The one who presented this morning was really cool. And DSM, I think, was really cool as well. So I saw a few, So I think that's also strategy, You're here anyway, so you can connect. That's the best opportunity. Mm-hmm. I think as women sometimes, sorry to put gender into it, or maybe it's my thing, maybe it's not a woman thing, but, you sort of a bit, oh, no, I don't want, shy and take, no, that's part of strategy, that's part of growing your business.
Question, and well done to everyone. Thank you for your time and your thought leadership. I'm thinking about how there's perception and sometimes reality that when women get to the top, they say, you know what, next group of women, you're on your own. I had to work really hard to get here, and good luck. How do you find the entrepreneurial experience? Is that something you find as a challenge, or do you find that it's a very cohesive and supportive network of entrepreneurs who say, you know, I've been through this experience, let me help you on your journey? How does that work?
Do you have anybody particular?
But I think in a corporate life as well, I always found it actually pity that they were not cooperative enough. I remember actually I had, in 2002, when I went for the first time to a women's leadership forum, and I have three children, and she started talking, I am the partner, I have never went to my school, my children's first day, I never did this, I have sacrificed everything. I was just there. This is not me. This won't happen. I will go to the first day of school for my children. I will do this and that. So, because she said this is the only way, and no, you know. I had also even another woman boss who didn't have children, and she found it terrible that I was going to take 4 months maternity leave. So I am so glad. And then also I have worked part-time, and when I finished, when the kids were grown up, and I said, okay, I want to come back full-time, the company said to me, oh, we thought you were not a career person. Oh. So those cliches, thankfully, is gone now. I see it, so I'm just so very, very happy. But it is so important that we open up more those points, and this cooperation is so important. This is why actually I spend I am several times in Zurich for new entrepreneurs. I give speeches for new entrepreneurs, especially for women entrepreneurs, very supportive to them. Because we have to do this, otherwise it won't, you will never get to 30%, and we will never get to 50% entrepreneurship.
But like everything in life, right, I think it's if you want it to be cohesive, it can be, right? Like, so it's also your journey. If you want to be supported by others, and go reach out, go to her about the fashion incubator or any incubator, or come to me about just contacts, it doesn't have to be sourcing, but you see, I think it's about what you want as well. But entrepreneurship, for sure, I think we understand our struggles very well, so, we immediately connect. So I think on a corporate level, there is still a bit of this hierarchy, and the connection is still a bit, but as an entrepreneur, you sort of started ground up, right? Everything you have to build. So I think that connection is there, Like, I think everybody has stories of carrying suitcases or, I don't know, chairs, lugging it through because you couldn't afford, help. And so for sure, I think that sort of sisterhood or that brotherhood in entrepreneurship is for sure there, I would say, more than the corporate world probably. I've never sort of done that full, so I don't know, but I would say yes.
I have found in my own experience as an entrepreneur that people are very helpful. Sometimes they didn't want to share manufacturing sources, or they're like a little bit more protective on that, but looking at what the Philadelphia Fashion Incubator represents, with designers that are 20 to 70 years old, and their background and experiences, and many, over half, don't even have a design background. They are extremely supportive of one another and want to help one another. Many of them mentor. The alumni come back and mentor, they teach, but also a lot of them are collaborating together now. Like, a bag designer just did a photo shoot with one of our apparel designers, or they're sharing information about a business lead or a sales opportunity or an event. So I find it very collaborative and supportive.
And I also would like to
I would love to. I also find that men are very supportive of women entrepreneurs, as long as they're not investors. That's where the challenge comes in, right? But I have found many men really supportive of, my vision, my venture is kind of like that. Just the other comment is I love your tagline, the good, the beautiful, and the true.
Ah, yeah, the true, the good, the beautiful. Yes,
That's right.
yes.
That's the three pathways to
Thank you.
self-realization.
Yeah, that's the Pink Marani, the brand, the first one we did.
Yeah,
It's the true, the good, the beautiful. Because ultimately, I think everything we all do, we want to look for these three things, right? The true is the depth in us, the wisdom, which you all have to look into. The good is the good that we can create outside and inside. And the beautiful is anything you create is beautiful. It's on the Frankfurter Opera, the opera building in the Frankfurt. It's beautiful. And it says super big, like, dem Wahren, dem Guten, dem Schönen in German. And so we were so inspired by it, walked through it, that I said, oh, it'd be great if you borrowed it. So we borrowed it for the brand. Any more questions? Or?
I just wanted to add to the past question. It's sometimes this queen bee thing. And sometimes we try also to understand why. And sometimes it's not conscious, because if we take the case in Switzerland, women have the right to exist like an individuals only since 51 years. So it means that persons who are still working now on some positions had to really fight to be a single person in one country, to have just the right to go to work. And we are now in this transition also between the history of women's rights and sometimes these old generations that are more like Queen Bee, they're just working for this equality so strong that they do not have time to stop to look up and to say, oh, I'm no more alone. But they opened a lot of doors, and sometimes it's not that conscious that they have this position of Queen Bee. And if you make it clear and communicate about that, you can see the change. And it starts with a thank you for having opening the door. And this concurrence that is created on the market, in the entrepreneurship, you have like a respect, because you know when you start that you jump from the mountain and you construct your flight during your falling down. So you have the respect of that, of this entrepreneurial mind, and this is what makes this difference between the corporate thing and the entrepreneurial environment. Environment, voilà.
But I think it's women or man, right? I think I always love to talk about human empowerment. Yes, we have divisions and all that, but I feel like if we ask the men in our lives and just support, for support, I'm sure they will, yes, there are challenges and opportunities, and, the whole funding thing, I know from my experience has been very challenging, raising money and all that. But ultimately, I think if we reach out, if we ask, if we know who to connect to, I think they're more than willing to help and support and at least open further doors, So it's also our mindset. I find it's very easy to point fingers, but then now my journey is sort of like I look at myself and say, what can I do better? How can I, if this guy goes golfing or tennis, then I'll go there. So what? Let's make a day out of it, and then, so I think it's also a mindset that we have to have as entrepreneurs, and not just always, look outside and say, oh, this sucks, So I think collaboration can work with everyone. That's sort of my biggest learning. Yeah.
We have 5 minutes left, please.
We have 5 minutes.
There's a question in the back, sorry.
So thank you and congratulations on sharing your stories, and also the honest way that you shared them. I think it's really important. In the spirit of collaboration, and because you never really know who's in the room, what, for each of you, would you mind sharing what you think is your biggest, let's say, in addition to funding or capital, what is your biggest challenge or need for support right now?
I can start because I'm actually having this challenge, finding great people for your team. So I actually have money now wow. Actually, I have money, I have great investors, I have a wonderful company, has huge potential for growth. Definitely going to be on that millionaire, multimillionaire list very soon. I have to say it out loud because the universe has to also hear it. I grew up in dirt poverty, so that story is coming at 4 o'clock, so I'm not going to give much of that. So I know the whole jazz. So, but that's a challenge, to find great people to work with, to build your team. I want to grow my team, but it's very challenging, being this in-between, you know. That's so, if you know how, please reach out.
And
I wanted to say my challenge.
yes, go.
My challenge is to try to communicate that it's not, we are in a lot of transitions. Climate, environment, gender, and digital transitions. And it's to say we need to take everything in a global way. And what's happening now in the digital world, it's really, really scary because we use a lot of tools, digital tools, where one more time with the algorithms that are therein and the biases that are in those tools, one more time the woman competencies do not come through. And this is my challenge.
I was going to share about my new venture that I'm starting with my home brand, and after having my accessories company for 8 years and doing it by myself, I mean, as I said, I did have some assistants and interns over the years, but I thought if I ever start a company again, I want to have fun. I want to have a team in place. So I'm currently also looking for the right people to bring in, and possibly a business partner.
For me, the biggest challenge is now from moving from few 4, 5, 6, 7 people to a larger group of people. Now I feel like I need to create processes, which of course, I don't want to create processes like in a large company, so it needs to be a very balanced way of doing it. But I feel if I let 20, 30 people do whatever they want, it will be total chaos. The other challenge is also that we are all remote, so that means there is no coffee break where you are actually, I'm working on this project, I'm as well, so this could happen. So this is my, just the transition from a very small startup to expansion. This is where actually some companies might fail, so have failed as well to grow. In the expansion phase, so this is where I am really careful now.